The wind on Verdun 7 didn't howl. It whispered, carrying dust that had once been cities, forests, civilizations. Marcus Webb had learned to hate that whisper. 3 years of salvage runs to dead worlds, and the silence still crawled under his skin, like something alive. His boots crunched on crystallized soil as he stepped down from the cargo ramp. The scanner in his gloved hand flickered with readings so faint they barely registered. Scrap metal, degraded power cells, maybe some intact circuitry if luck hadn't completely abandoned him. The hull of his ship, the wandering Echo, groaned behind him as it settled into the dust. She was old, scarred, held together by repairs that barely qualified as such. Like him, she kept going because stopping meant the end. Marcus adjusted the breather mask hanging loose around his neck. The atmosphere here was technically survivable, if you didn't mind the metallic taste and the constant feeling that you were breathing in ghosts. He'd grown used to it, grew used to most things eventually. The ruins stretched before him, skeletal frames of buildings that had once touched clouds. Now they were just shadows, burned black by weapons that didn't leave craters, they left erasure. Corporate war, probably. Maybe government purge. The difference didn't matter much to the dead. His scanner beeped, pulling his attention to a cluster of readings 300 meters northwest. Energy signature, faint but persistent. Could be an intact power core, something worth the fuel he'd burned getting here. Marcus started walking, his rifle slung across his back more from habit than expectation. Nothing lived here. That was the whole point of places like Verdun. The landscape shifted from burnt structures to open ground where something massive had crashed. Deep furrows scored the earth, leading to what looked like an escape pod, or what remained of one. The metal hull had been torn open like paper, exposing the interior to years of wind and dust. Black scoring marked the exterior, the telltale signature of plasma fire. Someone had been running. Someone had been caught. Marcus slowed his approach, scanner raised. The biological reading was there, weak but distinct. His heart rate picked up despite himself. In 3 years of salvage work, he'd found bodies. Lots of them. But never anything alive. The pod lay tilted on its side, half buried in dust that had drifted like snow against its broken frame. As Marcus came closer, he saw her body sprawled just outside the wreckage, one arm extended as though reaching for something just out of grasp. An alien woman, her skin the color of twilight, deep purple fading to silver at the edges. She wore clothing that had once been elegant, now torn and stained. Her face was peaceful, eyes closed, mouth slightly parted. Dead for days, maybe weeks. Marcus had seen enough death to recognize it instantly. He started to turn away, to mark the location and move on when he heard it. A breath. Small, shaking, barely there. He spun back, scanner forgotten in his hand. There pressed against the dead woman's chest, so small he'd missed her entirely, was a child. An alien girl, no more than 5 or 6 in human years. Her skin the same twilight purple as her mother's. Her eyes were open, enormous and dark, reflecting the gray sky above. She didn't cry, didn't move. Just watched Marcus with an awareness that made his chest tighten. For several seconds, neither of them moved. Marcus felt frozen, his mind struggling to process. A child, alive, here. How long had she been holding her mother? How long had she been waiting? He knelt slowly, setting the scanner down, raising his empty hands where she could see them. "Hey," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl's eyes tracked his movement, but she didn't respond, didn't speak. Her small hands clutched something against her chest. A pendant, maybe, or some kind of badge. It caught the light strangely, seeming to glow from within. Marcus pulled off his glove and reached for his scanner. keeping his movements slow and deliberate. The readings made his stomach drop. She was alive, but barely. Dehydration, malnutrition, exposure. Another day, maybe two, and there'd be two bodies here instead of one. "I'm going to help you," Marcus said, though he wasn't sure if she could understand. "I'm going to pick you up now, okay?" He moved closer, and the girl's grip tightened on the pendant, but she didn't pull away. When Marcus gently lifted her from her mother's arms, she was so light he almost gasped. Too light. She should weigh more than this. Her head rested against his shoulder, and he felt her rapid heartbeat against his chest. The woman's arm fell as he lifted the child, fingers trailing through the dust. Marcus looked at her face again, at the peaceful expression, and understood. She'd died protecting this child. Died making sure her daughter had one more day, one more chance. Something old and painful twisted in Marcus's chest. He knew about last chances, about choices made in final moments. His ship's alarm screamed, cutting through the silence. Marcus's head snapped up, eyes searching the sky. There, breaking through the cloud cover, three sleek shapes descended rapidly. Not salvage vessels. Corporate hunters, their hulls too clean, their movements too precise. They weren't here by accident. Marcus looked down at the child in his arms. Her eyes had widened, that eerie awareness sharpening into something that looked like fear. The pendant in her hands pulsed once, twice, with light that shouldn't exist. "They're looking for you," Marcus breathed. The girl's small hand gripped his jacket, fingers digging in with desperate strength. Marcus didn't think. Thinking was how you hesitated, and hesitation got you killed. He wrapped his thermal cloak around the child and ran. The dust exploded behind him as he sprinted toward the wandering echo. The corporate ships dropped lower, their scanning beams cutting through the gloom like searchlights. Blue light swept past him, close enough that he felt static electricity raise the hair on his arms. He dove behind a collapsed wall segment, pressing himself flat. The girl crushed against his chest. She buried her face in his jacket, her breath hot and rapid against his collarbone. The scanning beam passed overhead, moved on, circled back. Marcus held perfectly still, counting heartbeats. The girl didn't make a sound. After what felt like hours, but was probably 30 seconds, the ships moved away, heading toward the pod wreckage. Marcus didn't wait. He burst from cover and ran the last 100 meters to his ship, legs burning, lungs screaming. The cargo ramp was still down stupid, but lucky, and he pounded up it, slapping the close button as soon as he was inside. The ramp sealed with a hiss. Emergency lights cast everything in red. Marcus stumbled to the medical bay, such as it was a full-down bed and a diagnostic scanner that was older than he was. He laid the girl down carefully, his hands shaking now that the adrenaline was fading. She looked up at him with those dark, knowing eyes. Still hadn't cried. Still hadn't spoken. The scanner whirred to life, running its analysis. Marcus watched the results populate, his frown deepening with each line. Her physiology was wrong. Not damaged, but wrong. DNA markers he'd never seen, cellular structures that didn't match any known species in the database, and encrypted tags buried in her genetic code, locked behind security protocols that would take a corporate AI weeks to crack. "Who are you?" Marcus whispered. The girl raised one small hand, showing him the pendant clutched in her palm. Up close, he could see it wasn't a pendant at all. It was a badge, carved from some kind of crystal, covered in symbols that hurt to look at directly. The light pulsing from it synchronized with her heartbeat. The ship's computer chimed. External scan detected. Proximity alert. The corporate hunters had finished with the wreckage and were now searching the area systematically. Marcus made a decision. He strapped into the pilot's seat, fired the engines, and punched the thrusters. The wandering echo lurched into the sky, shaking like she might fall apart. Behind him, the corporate ships broke formation, turning to pursue. But Marcus had something they didn't 3 years of running, and nothing left to lose. He pushed the ship hard, racing for the upper atmosphere. The child appeared in the doorway of the cockpit, still clutching her badge. She watched the stars appear through the viewport, her expression unreadable. "We're going to figure this out," Marcus told her, though he had no idea if it was true. "I promise." The girl's hand found his arm, her touch surprisingly warm. And for just a moment, Marcus felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. The wandering Echo drifted through the void between stars, her engines cycling at minimal power to avoid detection. Marcus sat in the pilot's chair, eyes bloodshot from 2 days without real sleep, watching sensor displays that showed nothing but empty space. Empty was good. Empty meant the corporate hunters hadn't found them yet. Behind him, the girl slept fitfully on the medical bed. She'd finally collapsed from exhaustion 6 hours after they'd escaped Verdun 7, her small body giving out all at once. Marcus had carried her to the bed, covered her with every blanket he had, and watched her chest rise and fall for far too long before forcing himself back to the cockpit. He tried feeding her. Standard nutrient paste, the kind that worked for most carbon-based species. She'd eaten it mechanically, without joy or disgust, like someone who'd forgotten what food was supposed to be. Within minutes, color had returned to her face, her breathing had steadied, and she had looked less like a ghost. But her eyes, those dark, ancient eyes, never changed. Marcus rubbed his face, feeling the scrape of 3 days' stubble. He needed to decide. Needed a destination. Running blind through space only worked until you ran out of fuel, and he was down to maybe 3 jumps before the Echo started sputtering. The girl had drawn something while he wasn't looking. He'd found it on the floor of the cargo bay lines, traced in dust that glowed faintly for several seconds before fading. A map, or a memory. He'd managed to capture it with his scanner before it disappeared completely. Now, that image rotated on his navigation display. A station, marked with a symbol he didn't recognize. Coordinates that led to a region of space officially listed as dead, a failed colony cluster destroyed during the separation wars. 20 years ago, Marcus had learned to trust his instincts. Instincts said the girl knew something. Instincts also said following a mysterious map to abandoned space was probably stupid. But then, he'd made a career out of probably stupid. He laid in the coordinates and initiated the jump sequence. The Echo groaned, her frame shuddering as reality twisted around them. Then the stars streaked, and they were gone. They dropped out of hyperspace near a debris field that had once been 3 moons. Now it was just rock and metal, tumbling slowly through the dark. Marcus guided the ship carefully through the wreckage, sensors straining to find what the girl's map had shown. There, hidden in the shadow of the largest debris cluster, barely visible against the blackest station. Ancient design, pre-war construction, its hull scarred and pitted but intact. No lights, no power signature, nothing that suggested anyone had been here in decades. "This is your sanctuary?" Marcus muttered. "Looks pretty dead to me." A small hand touched his shoulder. He jerked, not having heard the girl approach. She stood beside his chair, one hand on the console, the other holding her crystal badge. Her eyes were fixed on the station with an intensity that made his skin prickle. "You sure about this?" he asked. She nodded once. "Certain." Marcus sighed and brought the ship in. The docking bay was open, or more accurately, its doors were missing, torn away by some ancient violence. He maneuvered into the darkness carefully, watching for debris, and set the Echo down with a thump that echoed through the empty space. The airlock hissed as it equalized. Marcus checked his rifle, made sure his sidearm was loaded, and looked at the girl. "Stay close." If anything moves, you get behind me. Understand?" She took his hand. Her palm was warm, her grip surprisingly strong. They stepped into the station together. Emergency lighting flickered to life as they moved down the corridor, activated by motion sensors that somehow still worked. The air was stale but breathable, recycled by systems that should have died years ago. Marcus's skin crawled. Nothing stayed powered this long without maintenance. The girl pulled him forward, not hesitating, as though she knew exactly where to go. They passed through corridors lined with doors, some sealed, some hanging open to reveal empty rooms. Signs in multiple languages marked sections: residential, medical, storage. This had been a colony station once, built to house thousands. Now it was a tomb. They reached a central hub, a massive circular chamber that rose several stories. Catwalks crisscrossed overhead, and windows looked out into the debris field beyond. In the center of the room stood a monument, a carved pillar covered in the same symbols Marcus had seen on the girl's badge. The girl released his hand and walked forward. She placed her palm against the pillar. The station came alive. Lights blazed to life throughout the chamber. Hidden panels slid open, revealing control systems that hummed with sudden power. Air circulators kicked in with a whoosh that made Marcus flinch. And from the corridors beyond came sounds, footsteps, voices, movement. Marcus raised his rifle. "Get behind me." But the girl didn't move. She stood by the pillar, watching as figures emerged from the shadows. Aliens. Dozens of them. Different species, different ages, all wearing expressions of shock and fear. They clutched children close, held makeshift weapons, backed away from the human with the gun. They looked thin, tired, like people who'd been hiding for far too long. An older alien woman stepped forward slowly. She was tall, with silver skin that caught the light, and wore robes that had been patched many times. Her eyes, deep violet, widened as she saw the girl. "No," the woman breathed. "That's not possible." The girl lifted her wrist, and the symbols there flared bright. The same symbols carved into the pillar. The same symbols worn on pendants and badges by half the people in the room. The woman's legs gave out. She collapsed to her knees, hands pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Around the room, others began to react, gasping, crying, reaching for each other in disbelief. Marcus lowered his rifle slowly, completely lost. "Someone want to tell me what's going on?" The woman looked up at him, her voice shaking. "This child? We thought she was dead. Her family, her entire bloodline, they were murdered 7 years ago. The council said it was necessary, said they carried dangerous knowledge." She struggled to her feet, moving toward the girl with trembling hands. "But if she lives, if even one survived, it means everything we've been hiding for was real." A male voice finished. Marcus turned. A man stood on one of the catwalks above human, lean and weathered, with gray streaking his dark hair. He descended the stairs with the easy grace of someone comfortable with his environment, his eyes sharp and assessing. "Name's Torin," he said, reaching the bottom. "Elder Torin, if you want to be formal about it." "And you are?" "Marcus Webb. I found her on Verdun 7. Her mother was dead, and corporate hunters were closing in." Torin's expression tightened. "Corporate hunters. They've been searching for 7 years, chasing ghosts and rumors." He looked at the girl, something like awe crossing his face. Until now. The silver-skinned woman had reached the girl now. She knelt, bringing herself to eye level, and spoke in a language Marcus didn't understand. The girl responded the first words Marcus had heard her speak. Her voice was soft, musical, sad. The woman pulled her into an embrace, shoulders shaking with sobs. "Who is she?" Marcus asked quietly. "Her name is Naya," Torin said. "Last daughter of the Keeper bloodline. Her people held knowledge the Galactic Council wanted destroyed truths about how the council really came to power. Evidence of genocides. Proof of corruption going back centuries. He crossed his arms. They wiped out her entire family to keep it buried. Or thought they did. Marcus felt cold. And I just brought her here. To a station full of refugees. If they tracked us, they can't track what they can't see. A new voice, said Dot. A woman emerged from one of the side corridors. Human 30s, with auburn hair pulled back in a practical braid and eyes that assessed Marcus in a single glance. She wore a pilot's jacket patched with repairs, cargo pants with pockets full of tools, and an expression that said she didn't trust him one bit. Sarah Kane, Torrin said. Our guardian angel. She keeps the station's stealth systems running, makes sure no one finds us. Sarah didn't smile. Your ship nearly triggered every alert we have. Sloppy flying, leaving a heat trail a blind scanner could follow. Marcus bristled. I was more concerned with not dying. Death comes quick when you're careless. She looked at Naya, and her expression softened fractionally. Though I suppose you did something right, bringing her home. This isn't her home. I don't even know where her home is. This is home now, the silver-skinned woman said, still holding Naya. Haven's Rest, where those the galaxy wants dead can still live. Alarms shattered the moment. Red lights pulsed through the station, and a mechanical voice announced, external sensor breach. Multiple contacts. Classification, hostile. Sierra cursed and ran for the nearest console. They followed you. 3 corporate destroyers, dropping out of hyperspace at the debris field edge. Marcus's stomach dropped. That's not possible. I ran a clean jump, no tracking. They didn't track your ship, Torrin said grimly. They tracked her. He pointed at Naya. The Council embedded tracers in the Keeper bloodline generations ago. Genetic markers that ping whenever they use their abilities. The moment she activated this station, we lit up like a beacon, Sierra finished. Her fingers flew across the console. Shields are coming online, but they're old. Won't last long against modern weapons. The chamber filled with panicked voices. Families grabbed children. People ran for interior corridors, the veneer of safety shattering in seconds. These were people who'd lived with fear too long. Who knew what happened when hunters found their prey? Marcus looked at Naya. She stood in the center of it all. Calm despite the chaos, her hand resting on the pillar. Symbols crawled up its surface, responding to her touch. Torrin moved beside him. She can amplify the station's defenses. Her bloodline built the original systems. But she's a child, and she's weak. It might kill her. That's not an option, Marcus said flatly. Then we need another plan. Sierra appeared at his other side. The station has weapons. Ancient, probably unstable, but they exist. Someone needs to get to the control center, bring them online manually. How long? 15 minutes if everything works. 30 if it doesn't. The destroyers will be in firing range in 10, Torrin said. Marcus looked between them. Looked at the refugees fleeing down corridors. Looked at Naya, this small child who'd already survived so much. 3 years of salvage. 3 years of running. 3 years of taking the easy jobs, the safe jobs, because anything else reminded him of what he'd lost. His crew. His ship, the original one. His faith that the galaxy was worth fighting for. But standing in this chamber, watching a child prepare to sacrifice herself for strangers, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Something old and rusted, like machinery that hadn't moved in years, suddenly grinding back to life. I'll go, he said. Sierra stared at him. You don't know the station layout. You'll get lost. And you're coming with me. He looked at Torrin. Keep everyone calm. Keep her safe. He gestured to Naya. Torrin nodded slowly. Don't get dead, Webb. We need people stupid enough to stand and fight. Marcus almost smiled. Specialty of mine. Sira was already moving, pulling a datapad from her pocket. Control center is 3 levels up, north section. Follow me and try not to shoot anything important. They ran together through corridors that shook as the destroyers opened fire. The old shields held, but Marcus could hear them groaning under the assault. Sira moved with confidence, never hesitating, her hands flying across access panels to open sealed doors. You've been here a while, Marcus panted as they climbed a maintenance ladder. 4 years. Came looking for my brother. The council took him for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Found this instead. She pulled herself up to the next level. He's dead now, but these people aren't. That's enough. They reached the control center, a room filled with ancient, holographic displays and control stations that sparked occasionally. Sira moved to the primary console, her fingers dancing across symbols Marcus couldn't read. Weapons systems are locked behind 3 layers of security, she muttered. Of course they are. How long? Longer than we have. The station shook violently. Warning klaxons blared. The shields were failing. Marcus looked at the console, then at Sira, really looked at her, the determined set of her jaw. The way her hands never stopped moving, even when everything seemed lost. The fire in her eyes that said she'd been broken before and refused to break again. There has to be another way, he said. There isn't. The code sequence is missing. Probably destroyed when the station was abandoned. She slammed her hand on the console in frustration. We needed more time. Marcus thought of Naya, her hand on the pillar, symbols responding to her touch. What if we don't need the code? What if we just need her? Sira's eyes widened. The Keeper bloodline. They had administrative access to everything they built. They ran back together, faster this time, desperation lending them speed. The station shuddered around them, pieces of the ceiling falling as shield sections failed. They burst into the central chamber to find Torin organizing a defensive perimeter while refugees huddled behind makeshift barricades. Naya still stood by the pillar, her small form glowing with light that pulsed in time with the station systems. She looked exhausted, swaying on her feet, but her eyes found Marcus immediately. He crossed to her in 3 strides, kneeling so they were eye level. I need your help. Can you access the weapon systems? The old ones? The ones your family built? She looked at him for a long moment. Then she took his hand and pulled him to the pillar, placed his palm beside hers on the carved surface. The world exploded into light in symbol and ancient code that scrolled through Marcus's vision too fast to comprehend. He felt the station around him, felt its bones, its breath, its sleeping fury waiting to wake. Felt Naya's presence beside his own, steady and certain, guiding him through systems that predated modern civilization. Together, they found the weapons. The station roared to life. Turrets that hadn't moved in decades ground into position. Weapon ports opened across the hull, revealing artillery that hummed with building power. Energy signatures spiked so high that the corporate destroyers probably thought the station was about to explode. Fire control is yours, Naya's voice whispered in his mind. Marcus opened his eyes. Found Sira at a newly activated console, eyes wide with shock. I have targeting. I have power. I have, she looked at him. How? Later, can you shoot? A fierce grin crossed her face. I was a military pilot before I got smart. Yes, I can shoot. The station's weapons spoke. Ancient particle beams lanced through space, crossing the distance to the corporate destroyers in heartbeats. Shields flared, collapsed, and the lead ship took a direct hit that tore through its port side. The other 2 scattered, returning fire. But they were built for intimidation, not real combat. Haven's Rest had been built by people who knew the galaxy, wanted them dead. Sierra's hands danced across the controls, coordinating fire from weapon systems she was learning on the fly. Marcus felt Naya's power flowing through the station, keeping systems stable, amplifying defenses, turning this ancient refuge into a fortress. The second destroyer tried to run. Sierra's shot caught it as it turned, and it disappeared in a bloom of white fire. The third sent a surrender signal. "Let it go," Torin said quietly. "Let it report back. Let them know we're here, we're armed, and we're not afraid." Sierra hesitated and lowered her weapons. The destroyer fled into hyperspace. Silence fell over the station. Marcus stayed connected to the pillar, Naya's hand in his, both of them trembling with exhaustion. Slowly, the light faded. The symbols dimmed. She collapsed, and Marcus caught her before she hit the ground. "I've got you," he murmured. "You did it. You saved everyone." Around them, the refugees emerged from cover. Slowly at first, then faster, their voices rising in disbelief and joy. They'd won. Against corporate hunters, against impossible odds, they'd actually won. Sierra appeared at Marcus's side, helping him stand with Naya in his arms. "That was insane. Yeah, we should do it again sometime." Marcus looked at her, really looked, and saw someone who understood. Someone who'd lost everything and found something worth protecting anyway. Someone who stood when running was easier. "Maybe we should," he said. She smiled. Tired, genuine, beautiful. Torin approached, the silver-skinned woman beside him. "The child needs rest. Medical Bay is this way." They followed, moving through corridors now filled with light and life. Families reunited, children laughed, and for the first time in years, Haven's Rest felt like its name in the medical bay. Marcus laid Naya on a bed. She opened her eyes briefly, looked at him, and smiled. Then sleep took her. "She'll recover," the silver woman said. "Her kind is resilient. More resilient than the Council ever suspected." Marcus nodded, exhaustion crashing over him. He stumbled to a chair and collapsed into it. Sierra sat beside him. "You could leave, you know. You got her here. Job's done." Marcus thought about his ship, about the empty cargo hold and the freedom of space, about 3 years of running from everything that mattered. "I could," he agreed, "but you won't." He looked at Naya, sleeping peacefully for the first time since he'd found her. Looked at the refugees moving past the doorway, already rebuilding. Looked at Sierra, her auburn hair catching the light, her eyes holding questions she hadn't asked yet. "No," Marcus said. "I don't think I will." Sierra's hand found his. Her grip was warm, certain, real. "Good," she said. "We need someone who knows how to fight. I'm better at running." "Then it's lucky you found somewhere worth staying." Outside the station, the debris field drifted in its eternal dance. Inside, in the warm light of Haven's Rest, Marcus Webb felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt home.